Okay, moving on to the next team in the ACC, and this is going to be the team that I have coming in 12th place in this year's Atlantic Coast Conference, and that would be Mike Bray and his Notre Dame Fighting Irish, and Coach Bray will be entering his 12th year as the head coach, and, not his 12th, his 21st year as the head coach, and it's crazy because Notre Dame, from, I would say, 2014 to 2017, really did establish themselves as one of the low-key, really good basketball programs. I think everyone could realize, even though Notre Dame, during that stretch, wasn't a Duke, they weren't a UNC, they weren't even a Virginia, but Mike Bray was really able to lead Notre Dame to some really consistent winning. He won an ACC tournament championship with these guys in 2014, 2015. He also got to an Elite Eight with these guys. So Mike Bray has done a lot of winning as the head coach of the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. 2 Elite Eights, I should say, by the way. And the bottom line is, over the last couple of years, Notre Dame has been a little bit of a disappointment. And low-key, if Notre Dame does not make the NCAA tournament this year, it is actually going to be the 4th year in a row that Notre Dame under Mike Bray will miss the NCAA tournament. And to be honest, that statement right there is just something most Irish fans are not used to saying. And the problem is that last year, I actually expected Notre Dame to be really good. They had a nice core of John Mooney, one of the more underrated players in the country, literally a walking double-double. He was phenomenal. TJ Gibbs, really good shooter, really consistent scorer. He was a little up and down, but I feel like every day he would give you 12 to 14 points. It would just be a matter of, okay, how consistent exactly could he be? And then they also lose a really good role player in Rex Pfluger, who I think losing him is really going to be a bigger loss than most people around college basketball would think. Now, they do bring in some new guys like Cormac Ryan, the transfer from Stanford. He actually returns to the program after sitting out for a full season last year. They also bring in a really good freshman big man in Matt Zona, a pretty good freshman guard in Elijah Taylor. But I do think when you look at Notre Dame, if you're buying stock in Notre Dame and you think that they could be good as opposed to some of the other past Notre Dame teams of the past, you're going to have to rely on the returning scorers to lead this team. And there are 4 guys in particular that I am really looking at. The first one is Prentice Hub, who is going to be the starting point guard and the leading guard for this Notre Dame team after Notre Dame realizes that TJ Gibbs is no longer there. And this is now Prentice Hub's team, and it's debatable to whether that's a good thing because Mike Bray's spread offense is often reliant on a good lead guard like your Jaron Grants or your Demetrius Jacksons or your Matt Furls to initiate things, and Hub's spotty efficiency thus far in his career could sink a normally deadly offense. Another question is who elevates into the Hub's role as the secondary ball handler, traditionally the grooming ground for Bray's point guards. And Robbie Carmoody is one guy that could help, but coming off a second straight lost season, this time to a torn ACL, it does make it hard to count on him for big minutes. They also bring back Dane Goodwin, along with Cormac Ryan, who's going to be the transfer from Stanford, who I already mentioned. I think both of them are capable ball handlers, but more comfortable scoring off the ball is going to be needed. They also bring in Trey Wirtz from Santa Clara, but he's actually going to sit out this season. And with that being said, even a larger burden falls on Hubs. There's even a guy, Nikola Jogo, the senior, who has some pretty intriguing ball skills for a guy his size, but he's never been able to stick in Mike Bray's rotation for a variety of other reasons. Mainly he just hasn't really played well, but he's been banged up with injuries throughout his career, and really Jogo consistently just has not been able to find his way onto the floor. And when the offense is humming, it should be a thing of beauty. That is the one thing that if you're a Notre Dame fan, when this offense is at full peak, especially with the starting 5 out there, it could be really good and really promising. Mike Bray can spread the floor with shooters like Carmoody and Dane Goodwin and Cormac Ryan and even big man Nate Laszewski, who will clear the way for pick and rolls with Hubs and Jawan Durham. Jawan Durham is one of the more underrated players in the country. I think he could really block shots, and he's a bouncy lob threat, and he becomes more hard to defend when off the ball because defenders really are just afraid to leave their own man with Jawan Durham. He's that good, that athletic, and he could really impact the game in many different ways. Bray also played through the post a lot last year, and Durham returns as a legitimate threat there, scoring in the 74th percentile per synergy. That attack opens up chances for the perimeter to get open shots or attack. And one other guy that I'm really looking forward to seeing for this Notre Dame team is Tony Sanders. He's going to be a guy that won't stretch the floor the same way as a Goodwin or Ryan, but he does have the length and mindset to slash against defenses who don't seal off driving lanes. And Leshevsky's a guy I really like. He could be the piece that could open things up for the Irish. And he's been a guy that when he entered college, most people did think of him as one of the better shooters in all of college basketball, which is pretty crazy at his size at 6'10". And Mike Bray has talked about trying to get him to add weight and maybe play a little bigger. He's proven to be sufficient defensive rebounder even when playing with a guy like John Mooney, but the shooting simply hasn't translated to the college level yet, as he's only 32% from three. If Notre Dame can play some serious stretches with Leshevsky as center, and the paint will be wide open for Hub and Ryan and Goodwin and the rest of the perimeter players for this Notre Dame team, I think ideally, if you're a Notre Dame fan, that's how your team is most likely to succeed this season. Defensively, Mike Bray is one of the few coaches still mixing in both zone and man-to-man in heavy doses. Both do an excellent job of forcing opponents to work in the efficient mid-range, a trend that has become more and more extreme in recent years. And the bottom line for Notre Dame is this. Mike Bray, with a healthy roster and a team that isn't capable to be that good, they don't have that much depth or talent, I feel like the range of where Notre Dame could possibly finish the season is in between all of those things. But at the same time, even though Notre Dame does have some upside, and I do think Mike Bray is one of the better coaches in college basketball, when I compare Notre Dame to your Clemsons and your Virginia Techs and your Syracuses and your Miamis, I just don't consider them to be as talented as some of those other teams. And I do think Mike Bray, maybe he's going to have to figure out how exactly to bring in talent and how exactly to build his teams, because really, other than the starting five, I'm not exactly sure right now where this Notre Dame team is going and where exactly their identity is going to be this season. Hub, Goodwin, Ryan, Leshevsky, and Durham. That's actually a pretty good starting five, but at the same time, over the last couple of years, Notre Dame has had much more talented starting fives that really have not been able to win games, and I'm curious to see if this group is any different than the previous Notre Dame teams of the past, and if so, what exactly is it that's getting the job done for this Notre Dame team? So I have the Irish finishing in 12th. I do think they have a nice core, but I just don't think, if you compare them to some of the other talented teams in the ACC, that they're anywhere close with talent.